Okay, now we have a screen of the legally assembled 5 of us. I'll see if I can adjust the angle and then we'll begin. I see.
Are you going to be warm enough?
Yeah.
You can
Here.
have
Oh,
my ugly
look,
hat
we're
if
in
you
the
want.
mist.
That might help.
I put something really
You're
warm
okay.
under here. If you stand a little in front there.
Excellent. We can begin our Easter celebration. Welcome, everyone. I don't have any political comments to make at all. No, none. I will begin with the calendar of the soul for Easter. We have just exited that week, but it's such a key week that I'd like us all to hear the Easter calendar of the soul. When out of worldwide spaces, the sun speaks to the human mind, and gladness from depths of soul becomes in seeing one with light. Then rising from the sheath of self, thoughts soar to distances of space and dimly bind the human being to the spirit's life. Thanks. I'll pass it on to Lois, who's going to get us moving.
It's a little cool out here, so we're going to do some Botmer gymnastics. We can't really do eurythmy outside, so I'm going to turn my back and turn this way when we've got things worked out. I get away from the river. We've got a river right beside us here. We don't want to Botmer into the river. I want to go back there. Sebastian, all right. Are we distanced and we can see each other?
I'm just
Okay.
you occupying
A space. Okay. So Botmer is working with the circles, planes and circles around the body. So we've got a nice circle this way. And the way we go into that in Botmer is if you put your feet together, and as you go into a horizontal, you lift just a tiny bit up off the ground, not very far, and down the feet go right down into the ground. And then we make this half circle, a little bit of a lift, and down. So you feel like it's just elevated up into your light body. A little bit of a lift. Now when we go all the way up, you go up in your toes. And down, and down. So halfway up, all the way up, down, and down. That's our start and finish. And so what we're going to add here now is going to the side this way, we're going to jump with our legs like that into a star. And down. Star. And down. Now we're going to go into the star, and then we're going to take this plane, think of it as we've got this plane around us, and we're going to tip it like the earth is tipped on its axis. Bend that knee a little bit, and up. And now tipping that whole axis this way, and up. Now as you tip down, look at your higher hands slowly, look at your fingertips. And back to face forward, and looking at your fingertips, and back to face forward. Then we're going to jump our two hands up, and then open down, and down. So there's a sequence. We go out, tip in one direction, look at your fingers, feel the nice twist in your waist, jump up, and then open out, and down. We'll do that one more time. Out, tip, How far can you kick it? Then up, down, and down. There's a neat way to get into the jump up. We're going to add one more thing to our sequence. When you're here, you can swing your arms and go up from there. This is fun. I'll do it this way for the camera. This is really fun. You can work on this for quite a while on your own at home. Jump out, and then I try and time the up all together, that it snaps up, and then you open out and come down. So out, reach, and up. The arms really help you get there, down and down. So we're going to add that into our sequence. So we start with jump out, tip, tip. Now we swing ourselves up, down, and down. Let's do that 2 more times. It's a nice little sequence. Jump, tip, tip, swing it up, down, and down. Okay, one more little sequence. This one is like a deep breathing. We take our arms in this parallel all the way up. That's a big in-breath, and all the way down as an out. To a 4 count. So go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you do the 4, we're going to step it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay?
Front first, so nobody falls in the water.
Yes.
Good.
1, 2, 3, breathe in. 1, 2, 3, breathe out. 2, 3, up. 1, 2, 3, and that's 4 times. That's 2. This is 3. And you note at the end, I'm not putting my feet together. My feet stay in a walking step, like an Egyptian step. Now from here, we're going to do our up. And now there's something really nice to do here. It's like a bow and arrow. You cross your hands in front and feel you're being pulled from the back. So it's like a stretch through, heels down, and then lift from there up. Put the feet together, down, and down. So that part, we've come back. We're in our Egyptian stance. We lift up into a sideways, down into our bow and arrow, up to the top, feet together, down and down. That's a nice breathing sequence. 4 steps, 4 times, then side, bow and arrow, up and then down. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Rob, you're going to have to step strongly back. 3rd time. And 4th time. And we're going to end in our open step. Up. Up. Feet together. Down. Down. So that one more time. 1, 2, 3.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I turn it over to Grant. We needed that to stay warm out here. It's a little brisk.
Yeah, a little brisk out here. All right, I don't know quite how we assemble this group with a screen in the middle of us, but
Circle.
sure. What I want to do is talk about the Easter season, the imagination of Easter, the time, a quarter of the year that we celebrate with the festival. We've just come out of winter, and in winter, especially where we are, the elementals are quiet. They've all gone into the earth, into the rock, happily relaxing, sleeping even in the earth. The earth is awake, nature is asleep, covered with a blanket of white. That season is past. Our blanket of white has disappeared. The elementals are beginning to waken. They're beginning to rise from the earth. Steiner tells us a lot about this, and especially about the two great adversaries of humanity and what they're doing at this time of year and how significant it is to us and our future. As the elementals begin to awake and they begin to rise out of the solid earth, the earth, which has been so awake and thinking in the winter, now sinks into a bit of dullness. The earth is not thinking actively, it's more of a dull consciousness. But as this thinking recedes from the earth, an eagerness, an emotion arises in the earth. The excitement of the elementals is reflected in the earth, and this eagerness, this emotion in the earth is noticed by Ahriman. Ahriman is very excited at this time of year. He's finding the opportunity that he's been looking for to pull the astrality, which is about to surround the earth with the elementals, to pull it back into the earth, to hold on to this astrality for his own use. So for a brief time in spring, Ahriman is hopeful and eager that he can work with this excitement in the earth and hold it to himself, to have us bound to the earth and not to rise into the sulfurous summer, but to stay bound to the earth. Ahriman ultimately will be disappointed as the spring proceeds and we move into summer. But this is a moment at which, were he to succeed, we would be held and our astrality would be pulled in, and Ahriman would succeed in materializing all of the forces that are active in the earth, that are becoming active in the air, that are becoming active in the growth of the plants. So to look at the growth of the plants, they're beginning to appear above the surface. Those plants that disappear in the winter under the snow, that die to a seed and sprout again. Those plants are carrying part of the forces of the earth. Steiner focuses on the carbonic acid, as he calls it, the carbon dioxide. The plants are carrying this with them. We know from science that the plants use the carbon and the carbon dioxide to build their structure. They're carrying it above the surface of the earth as they rise and grow. And as this carbonic acid rises above the surface of the earth, Lucifer gets excited. This is an opportunity for Lucifer to pull the physical life forces of the earth up and out of the earth and beyond it, to pull the etheric Lucifer circling above in the spring, watching all of this plant growth and watching all of the carbonic acid being pulled out of the earth and into the air. If Lucifer can saturate the earth with this carbonic acid, does that sound a bit familiar to those of us worried about air pollution? The carbon dioxide in the air, as it increases in the world, Lucifer is pleased. Eventually, if Lucifer can succeed, the world for humans will be poisoned. Humans won't live here physically. We'll be pulled away with our etheric forces into the realm of Lucifer. So in the spring, again, Lucifer is excited. There's an opportunity for the world to become his, to pull the etheric up out of the earth into the air to such an extent that humans depart. We give up on this physical earth. We follow Lucifer with our etheric forces. Both of these beings are quite excited at this moment. They're both active and attentive to the world. What appears in the picture of the representative of man, what appears in the middle of these two beings is the Christ, or represented by Raphael at this time, the archangel of the spring, healing the damage that the earth is going through by the extremes of Lucifer and the wishes and attempts of Ahriman. Christ appears in the middle. The earth is reborn, as we know. The resurrection occurs even in the plant world. But Lucifer and Ahriman are kept from their tasks. They're kept apart. They cannot collaborate. Christ is in the middle. Christ appears. The activity of Raphael, the healing activity, is very strong at this point, and Raphael begins to use the other forces in the world beyond the carbonic acid, the sulfur that's beginning to appear, the phosphorus that's beginning to appear mixed in with this. Raphael can support tremendous healing at this time. If we've struggled through the winter with our physical forces challenged, in the spring they're rejuvenated. What's happening on the other side of the world? It's spring here in Australia. It's fall. Raphael is the regent of spring in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, Michael is the regent. So at this moment, Michael is hard at work, bringing the will forces to the southern hemisphere. Well, we were briefly over 5 there. We saw our visitor. Those Michaelic forces are not lost to us. They're transmitted through the earth. But as the forces of the regent of the southern hemisphere transfer through the earth, they're transformed. And the forces of will that come from the fall are transformed in the spring into the forces of action and movement. So we are bequeathed through the efforts of Michael through the earth to the interior of our being, the forces of movement, as we just benefited from with Lois. This is the time for movement to awake. Combine that with the forces of healing, and we have the exciting exuberance of the spring. That's a bit of a picture of what's happening in the spiritual world in this season. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll pass it back to Lois, who's going to close off our session with a verse and description that's very close to our theme of Easter. I'll leave that to Lois to introduce.
Rudolf Steiner in 1924 gave a series of 4 lectures that are entitled The Easter Festival in Relation to the Mysteries. And in the 4th lecture, I recommend all 4 lectures. I'm just going to focus on the 4th one. There he speaks about a time when the mystery centers were alive in different places around the world, that spiritual seekers and adepts would travel from place to place. They were pictured as cloaked travelers. And at Easter time, at this time of year, one in the know went to Ephesus, to the center at Ephesus. And at Ephesus, there was a very special experience that one could have there, be guided into. And everyone who was permanently at Ephesus knew this experience very, very well. It was their hallmark experience. And he said, Steiner said that we, and I assume that we here were probably among the cloaked ones traveling about. Let's think for a moment that we were, because we have to go back and capture some of these things again to bring into our time. That, and he speaks of it this way, that we went to Ephesus, and through the ceremonies, we were brought to re-experience the pre-birth epoch when we were in the moon sphere. And from the moon sphere, we were building our light bodies. So one would actually experience that pre-birth moment in time and work consciously with the forces there to build the light body up out of the planetary forces that are radiating in. Now, Steiner has spoken in several places that the moon, in a way, is a translator or a receiver of the planetary forces that are radiated then to Earth beings. And he said this experience could be captured then in a verse. And this is the verse that he gave for that experience. Being sprung from worlds, thou in figure of light, given strength from sun in the moon's might. Thou art endowed by Mars' creative ringing, and by Mercury's animated swinging. Thou art illumined by Jupiter's shining wisdom, and by Venus's love-supporting beauty, so that Saturn's age-old spirit inwardness may the spaces being and times becoming consecrate. Thank you. Thank you, Lois.
Lovely picture. That's the first for me. So that concludes our brief recognition of the season that we're entering. I appreciate those of you that aren't allowed to join with us being online. Anyone who reads this, watches this video in recording later will understand that we're an active branch trying to reflect the vitality of anthroposophy. And this is one of those moments that we can't miss. Thanks all for attending, and have a wonderful Easter season.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You all as well.
Thank you. Happy Easter.
Thank you. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy
Yes.